The C-SPAN networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation's capital and are a public service of your television provider. C-SPAN, created by cable.
Chairman Corker, Ranking Member Cardin, members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I appreciate very much the opportunity to appear before you today. It's a great privilege to address this committee, which has done so much to advance America's interests around the world.
Mr. Friedman also said that Palestinian refugees don't have a claim to the land, don't have a connection to Palestine, when in fact they do, Mr. Friedman. I'm right here, Mr. Friedman. My grandfather was exiled, was kicked out by the state of Israel, Mr. Friedman, and I'm right here, Mr. Friedman, holding up the Palestinian flag, right behind you. We are going away, Mr. Friedman. We were there, we are there now, and we will always be there. Palestinians will always be in Palestine.
It's a great privilege to address this committee, which has done so much to advance America's interests around the world, and which, together with the entire United States Congress, has for generations maintained unwavering support on a bipartisan basis for the State of Israel. I am grateful to the President of the United States for nominating me to the post of Ambassador to Israel, and I'm humbled by the trust and the confidence that he has placed in me to strengthen the unbreakable bond between our country and Israel and to advance the cause of peace within the region. I'd like to thank Senator Graham and Senator Lieberman for their kind words of introduction and for their leadership on so many critical matters that affect our nation. I'd like to introduce my family members who are here today and thank them for their support and encouragement. My beautiful bride of 36 years, Tammy, and my children, Daniel, Aliza, and her husband, Eli, and Talia. Watching at home are Daniel's wife, Jana, my son Jacob and his wife Danielle, who just had a baby boy, our daughter Katie, and our 7 beautiful grandchildren. Whatever success I have achieved in life would have been unthinkable without their love and support, especially that of my dear wife. I'd also like to wish good luck to my youngest child, Katie, who is litigating her first mock trial today in her high school trial advocacy program. I could not continue without reflecting upon my father, Rabbi Morris Friedman, who passed away some 12 years ago. He was my mentor, my hero, and my closest friend. The child of poor immigrants, my father was a great patriot who felt an enormous debt of gratitude to our beloved country for its essential goodness in giving his parents and so many others the enormous opportunities embedded in United States citizenship. In 1948, my father and my mother sat nervously at their radio, listening to the session of the United Nations that was then held in Queens, New York. And they rejoiced as the United States became the first nation to recognize the nascent state of Israel. My father cared deeply for Americans of all religious and political stripes. He marched in the civil rights movement. He convened prayer vigils to mourn the assassination of President Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King. And in the 70s, he handcuffed himself on numerous occasions to the Soviet mission to protest the Kremlin's refusal to allow Soviet Jews to emigrate. In October 1984, my father...
Friedman is supporting the theft of Palestinian land. Mr. Friedman is currently building a 5-story apartment building in the settlement in the West Bank. David Friedman will far more likely provoke conflict in Israel and the occupied territories. Mr. Friedman supports expansionist policy and the annexation of the West Bank. Support Palestinian lives.
In October 1984, my father had the privilege to host President Ronald Reagan for lunch in our home on Long Island, with my mother doing the cooking, and to later introduce him as he addressed our synagogue. Those were dark days at the United Nations for the State of Israel. It operated under the cloud of a General Assembly resolution that equated Zionism with racism. President Reagan, in his remarks to my father's congregation, was unambiguous. He said, and I quote, "If Israel is ever forced to walk out of the United Nations, America and Israel will walk out together." It was an unforgettable moment and a watershed in U.S. relations. 7 years later, with the overwhelming bipartisan support from this body, America led the effort to repeal the infamous UN resolution. I'd like to thank Senator Cardin, who was serving in the House at that time, for his leadership in advocating for that effort, and to think that my father played a small role in setting that whole process in motion is of great pride to my family. My father's values are my values. I could never replicate the contributions he made, I have certainly never been forced or asked to sacrifice in the same manner of that great generation. But I have sought meaning and fulfillment in life through my faith, my incredible family, and through various philanthropic endeavors. As you know, our nation's support for Israel is long-standing, steadfast, and strongly in our national interests. If I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed by the Senate, I will dedicate my mission to two things: advancing the national interests of the United States and strengthening its relationship with Israel, and working tirelessly to bring peace and stability to the region. I will bring to this mission a deep understanding of Israel's history, culture, geography, and commerce, developed over a lifetime of study and more than 50 visits to the State of Israel. I will bring to this mission a close relationship with the President and a demonstrated ability to carry out his directions and strategies. And finally, I will bring a negotiating skill developed over many years to resolve multilateral disputes, often extraordinarily contentious. I will bring an unshakable commitment to this country, an ability to positively engage with the Israelis, and a working command of the Hebrew language. I approach this with unbridled optimism and excitement. Some of the language that I used during the highly charged presidential campaign that ended last November has come in for criticism, and rightfully so. While I maintain profound differences of opinion with some of my critics, I regret the use of such language. I want to assure you that I understand the critical difference between the partisan rhetoric of a political contest and a diplomatic mission. Partisan rhetoric is not appropriate in achieving diplomatic progress, especially in a sensitive and strife-torn region like the Middle East. From my perspective, the inflammatory rhetoric that accompanied the presidential campaign is entirely over, and if I am confirmed, you should expect my comments to be respectful and measured. If confirmed, I will also faithfully observe
We are, if not now, American Jews against the occupation. David Friedman, you promote racism, fund illegal settlements. We will not be silenced. You do not represent us, and you will never represent us.
Israeli occupation is an injustice against Palestinians and a moral crisis for American Jews. Moral American Jews stand against occupation and against Friedman. Moral American Jews stand against Friedman.
Senators, if you send this man to Israel, you endanger millions of Palestinians and Israelis. American Jews stand against this man. We stand for freedom and dignity for all. Olam chesed yibaneh. We will build this world with love.
If confirmed by the Senate, I also intend to faithfully observe the directions given me by the President and the Secretary of State without regard to my personal opinions. I'd like to thank this committee for permitting me to appear today. I look forward to answering all of your questions. And if I am confirmed, I look forward to working with each and every one of you to enhance our relationship with the State of Israel. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. State of play, the vote has not yet gone off, and we'll just continue with questions.
He is unqualified for this position. He is unqualified to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. He finances illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. Do not confirm David Friedman. He is a war criminal. We believe in ending the illegal settlements in the West Bank. David Friedman funds them.
So we'll begin questioning with Senator Cardin, and if Senator